Good evening and welcome back to another installment of Red Wave USA. My name is Ross Raatz and we have a wonderful show for you tonight. We got a good 3 topics to really dive into. The first of which is going to be the meeting that happened today with President Trump and President of Ukraine Zelenskyy and what they got into. We will dive deeper into that. We are also going to talk about what seems to be the Democratic holiday tomorrow, the No Kings protests that are going to be happening all over the nation tomorrow with big turnouts. Who knows? You never really know with their protests. But anyways, we'll dive more into that and the specifics on their gatherings. And lastly, we're going to talk a little more about the Trump Revenge Tour, is what I'm going to start calling it. Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton was indicted on mishandling classified documents and a various amount of other counts, and we'll get into that as well to end off our show. I want to say thank you again for joining us on this new episode of Red Wave USA. I'm really starting to come in my own, I feel, and get used to talking in front of the camera. So again, thank you for joining us tonight, and we're sure to have another great episode of Red Wave USA for you. Thank you. Friday, October 17th. Happy Friday to everyone. We made it through another week of politics and, of course, the work days, right? But anyways, the first kind of topic I wanted to get into was this meeting between Trump and Zelenskyy, right? The president of Ukraine. So obviously this Ukraine-Russia war is still going on at full force, or there some sort of, kind of back and forth is still happening right now. That's still going on. I know Trump is the peacemaker right now, and now he has moved on to this one days after he got the peace deal done between, Palestine and Israel. But anyways, this one, he had President Zelenskyy at the White House, and the funny thing I found about this meeting was Zelenskyy had proposed and told media outlets or whatever that he was coming under the influence, or under the expectation, rather, that he was going to be receiving more military aid from the U.S. And he was also going to be asking for more long-range missiles, right? The funny thing here is Trump actually denied both of those. Trump is, again, he is pushing this narrative, and he's backing it up, rather, that he's the peacemaker right now. He wants these wars to be over, and he wants to clean them up. But kind of from what I take it, Trump actually also said, he goes, I want you guys both to just stop, agree to a ceasefire, and you guys can both claim victory. And from this statement, what I take is that he's like, listen, this is like 2 kids that are fighting right now, and he says, you guys are fighting over a toy right now. You can have it for 30 minutes, and then you can have it for 30 minutes. Come to a compromise, right? Trump, he's done, essentially. He's really over the bickering between these 2 countries. So he says, you guys can both be winners, right? We'll give you guys both participation trophies at the end of the day. But he also stated that with this, both sides claiming victory and both sides kind of halting where they're at, Russia has pushed into the city of Kyiv in Ukraine, and they have gathered some land, I guess, and set up their line. And Trump called that, establish the lines where they are and call it a day. So essentially Russia would be receiving some extra land within Ukraine, and President Zelenskyy is not happy about that. But to end a war, there is always going to have to be compromises, right? Seems to be the word of the day lately between this episode and the last one. But a compromise needs to be made regarding that, and that's exactly what Trump is calling for. But I really just think it's funny that Zelenskyy came in requesting all this, bolstering of his arsenal of military power with U.S. power, rather. And Trump said, no, you guys need to figure it out, which he's actually going to be speaking with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, in the near future to kind of talk about it from his side of things and get things straightened out over there too. And hopefully then we can come to a peace deal regarding this war as well. And then Trump would be the ultimate peacemaker. 2 wars in a matter of a week, right? Or a matter of 2 weeks. That would be some sort of record, I would have to say. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like this, peace deal wise, in my lifetime. So, especially from Trump, right? Trump seems to be the boost up the military and peace through strength kind of deal. And right now, it's peace through words, which is kind of a different side that we're seeing. And I'm not complaining. I like it, you know. But anyways, that's about it regarding that. We're still waiting on President Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin, so we can kind of sort out both sides. But again, this President Zelenskyy seems to be really adamant about wanting to get that land back, and I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. But again, we're seeing pushback from both sides. Vladimir Putin wants to keep pushing on, and Zelenskyy wants to get his land back, so I completely understand it. But at the end of the day, a peace deal needs to be made, and Trump seems to be making some good headway on that. So that's it for really that topic, not much else. I just wanted to cover that meeting today that President Trump had with Zelenskyy and how that went and kind of the details of that. So next, I want to talk about something rather controversial and something that's going on tomorrow, actually, as I will be posting this episode later tonight, hopefully, with getting through all the editing and difficulties going through to upload something like this to YouTube, right? But No Kings protests, right? These protests have been going on for a while, ever since Trump took office, throughout the summer and even in the spring, right? These have been going on for quite a while, but this is supposed to be the biggest of them all, right? Is what the administrators / organizers for this are calling for. It's going to be the biggest populated No Kings protest, right? They have over 2,500 different events across the U.S., I think is what they said. So again, this is supposed to be some big pushback and but here we are again with these protests, and they don't ever stop, right? It seems what's being held to a higher standard right now on the left is protests and confrontation over compromise, right? I bring that word to the table again, compromise. There is no compromise from the left still. And I'm not going to talk about the government shutdown today, but as you guys all know, we're still dealing with that, right? No budge. But anyways, it's this ideal of fight rather than come to the table and talk, right? So that's what we're dealing with regarding these No Kings protests. But even in Michigan here tomorrow, they'll be in Lansing at the Capitol building. There's supposed to be a huge one, which they've already had 2 or 3 that I've seen over there. And they've drawn somewhat mediocre crowds. I don't really know. Nothing really compared to the Charlie Kirk one, though. That memorial was ginormous. Big support there. But anyways, I quoted Trump's kind of response to this nationwide No Kings protest tomorrow, and he said, "I'm not a king." Just like, what, me? You guys talking about me? I'm not a king. I'm the president, right? I don't know. He has this sense of humor with his politics, and I love it. I think it's so funny with how he really does things, right? More on the sense of humor, right? He updated the White House wall of presidents, right? Every president's got their picture on the wall, right? And you go towards the end there's Trump for 2016 to 2020, and then you go to Biden's picture, and it's a picture of the auto pen, right? Because that was the big debacle about Biden's presidency, is that he wasn't really in charge, right? Because he didn't really know what was going on half the time, half the time he wasn't even in the White House. He was on a beach somewhere, or he was back in Delaware at his home, He wasn't really in charge. So this auto pen was signing everything, and who knows was pushing legislation through, right? And signing bills and legislation. So he put the picture of the auto pen. So it goes Trump, auto pen / Biden, Trump, right? And so that's his sense of humor that I just find so funny. But again, he's like, who? Me? I'm not a king. What are you guys protesting about? You know, I find that quite funny. But the organizers' kind of whole frame of this No Kings protest is defending against authoritarian rule. They think Trump is once again a dictator or authoritarian ruler, right? And you know, where do they get this rhetoric from? Where do normal everyday citizens and protesters on the left, where does this rhetoric come from? It comes exactly from the top down. It comes from your Schumers, from your AOCs, from your Bernie Sanders even. He's on there. Him and AOC are in this little pact together where they go on talk shows and just absolutely, you know, attack Trump and attack Republicans and continue to push this rhetoric that we're all some sort of, you know, Nazi or dictator or racist, whatever. It's a different word every single day, right? We get hit with something else all the time. But anyways, the organizers are saying it's a defense against or for First Amendment rights. They're saying that the censorship and we're censoring Democrats and we're taking away their First Amendment right. Again, we are the party that backs the Constitution. You are the party that wants to repeal it. Let's bring up the Second Amendment, right? You guys have been trying to get a gun ban for how long now? Or a weapons ban for how long? And that plan was to come and take guns from every U.S. citizen in their household, right? No, that's in the Constitution. But anyways, the defense of the First Amendment, right? It's a stand against the authoritative dictator Trump. It's the same thing, and it always will be the same thing as long as these top legislators push this whole narrative. So we're going to continue to come back to that. But anyways, if we really want to dive into this whole First Amendment thing and how liberals think that their First Amendment rights are being taken away from them, let's go back to when liberals were in power. Let's go back to when the executive branch was Joe Biden, right? And the Democrats ran the House. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to COVID era, right? The whole time there. You want to talk about censorship, really? What about when Trump was completely wiped out off of all social media? Off of X, Facebook, Instagram, everything. You completely took away his voice. Let's not forget that. The voice of the Republican Party at that time, the presidential candidate for 2020, and you took away his voice, right? You want to talk about censorship? There it is, right there. I don't think we've never taken away Biden or AOC and all the other hate spreaders. We've never censored you guys on that. You guys, the liberals use social media as their biggest weapon. You know, posting these protests and holding these protests, that's all done through social media. And we're not taking that away from you. Nobody's taking that away from you. So I don't know what stand you're making for the First Amendment and how that's being attacked. I'd love to hear it from a liberal and what they have to say regarding that. But if anything, we have been censored. Republicans have been censored for a long time, and not just through social media. We've been, as a young Republican, I've been censored on college campuses, right? You don't want to bring up your views on a college campus, whether that be academically or just socially. You don't want to be known as a Republican on campus because you'll get constantly berated with nasty comments and nasty looks, right? That's been a thing for as long as I've been alive, you know? And even more so now with Trump in office and with Make America Great Again, right? They call it MAGA and how it's so horrible. If anything, we're the one that needs to be doing the No Kings protests or the you're taking my First Amendment right protest. If anything, well, we need to be doing that, you know? The censorship has gone on too far from the left, if anything. But we don't make a big deal out of it because we're mature, and again, we're the party of common sense, right? So we move past it and we stay strong. It's the whole point. Conservatives, we stay strong. But anyways, remember going back, the COVID disclaimers, right? If you were to post something on social media talking about your opinions on COVID and how you didn't like whether it was the lockdowns or the mask mandates or the vaccine mandates, right? You want to talk about authoritarian rule? Forcing me to wear a mask in public? Forcing me to inject something into my body, right? Again, it's my body, my choice, right? But no, you can't use their argument against them. The whole thing on abortion, right? If you go to that and you talk about that, say that's your talking point with a liberal on abortion. And they're like, well, it's my body, my choice. I should get to choose whether to rip the child out of me or not, right? Okay, well, I should be able to choose what I put in my body as in medicine. No, they don't think so. They think that you should be forced to inject the vaccine into you for public safety, right? So at the end of the day, it's not your body and not your choice, right? So again, they're contradicting themselves. This happens often within their party. You know, they can't seem to get their talking points really down. But I mean, please tell me how we're censoring people. So someone tell me how the Republicans are censoring Democrats. I don't really know how. The only thing we're really doing is we use the White House page to put memes on. And I'll pull that up. I just saw this right before I started recording, and it's this it takes you back to that 2016 Trump when it was very America first and America rah type vibe, you know what I mean? Where it's very pro-America, red, white, and blue, here we are type of deal. Roll that clip.
My fellow Americans, our movement is far from over. In fact, our fight has only just begun. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So with American pride swelling in our hearts and American courage stirring in our souls, I say these words to you tonight. We will make America great again.
So this clip was actually posted on the White House Instagram, and I'm sure on Facebook and X and whatever other social media sites the White House is on. But I loved that clip, and I needed to share it because that is kind of the main focal point of my show, I feel like. And again, I go back, I know a lot of conservative media members, and whether it be podcasts or newscasts, whatever that is. I know we all coined this America First phrase, right? And for good reason, because that's how we all feel. It should be America before anybody, right? So anyways, I wanted to show that clip, give everybody some Friday inspiration going into this wonderful weekend in the greatest country in the world, right? But anyways, other than things like that, promoting Trump and America First, and maybe putting sombreros on Chuck Schumer. What are we doing to censor Democrats? What are we doing to slander Democrats, right? Hell if I know. I couldn't tell you. But anyways, that's really about it regarding this whole censorship and no kings protests. I find it so ridiculous. I'd love to go to one, but I just know that it would be a very violent place for me to be. I feel like I would just be in constant danger to be there. But I'd love to go walk up and experience it. And I actually did once. I went to one last fall, and I was kind of in disguise, you could say. I had a blue Nike sweater on, right? So I had their colors on. So I was kind of in disguise in their little protest. And I just kind of sat there, with my arms crossed, listening to some trans guy up there talking about how his rights are being taken away from him and this and that. It's the same sob story every time. If you are like me and you're a conservative and you're wanting to go experience what these protests are all about and see what the Democrats are getting up to tomorrow, what the Democrats are wasting their time doing on Saturday, be careful. It is a violent place for conservatives to be. And I'm not saying it's going to be violent. The organizers have said this is a non-violent protest, and we want everyone to keep it that way. But again, we've heard it time and time again about Democratic protests and far-left protests and what those turn into. We've seen it with the ICE protests, in multiple big cities. We see this a lot, where you gather a lot of people, and you can't count on every single one of those people, Democrats, to be peaceful. You don't know who in that group is going to start some sort of violence. You don't. So again, a little warning to my Republican friends: be careful going to any sort of event like this tomorrow, as it's going to be kind of hostile territory for us. And not like the football game hostile territory where, say, you're a Michigan State fan and you're going into the big house, or you're going to the Michigan game, right? Wearing a Michigan State shirt. And not that hostile. This is like hateful hostile, where they will go out of their way to do something about you being there, right? Anyways, find something to do. Hit the golf course or watch some good old college football on the TV. Cook out. Find something better to do, As much as I want to be there, it would have to be with a big group. I couldn't go in solo unless I went undercover again. But no, I'm not going to waste my time doing or listening to their whatever rhetoric they're going to be pushing tomorrow, So anyways, that's about it. I just wanted to let everybody know about the No Kings charade going on tomorrow, Saturday, October 18th. And our last topic of the day is kind of an update on Trump's revenge tour, right? He said this in his campaign. It was the first time that I saw it really, where actually the DOJ and our justice system, our American jurisprudence system, was weaponized by Biden and, well, probably someone under Biden, because Biden wasn't really running the country, but where our justice system was used against an individual politically. They started this. Remember that. This was started by the Democrats. So here Trump is saying, hey, you guys want to do it to me? Here we are. Here's what you brought upon yourself. And this is going to sound a little weird at first, but I'll explain it to you. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, right? And you ask, as so did I, why would Trump be going after one of his own? Bolton was the national security advisor from, I want to say it was 2018 to 2019, when Trump ultimately fired him and said, listen, we have vast disagreements on policy. We can't be in the same cabinet. You can't be in my cabinet, right? And he let him go. After that, after he let John Bolton go, he went on a total leftist run, right? He claimed Trump was unfit and it was unjust that he was a president and he should not be holding such a big power position, and just absolutely berated Trump and demoralized his character, everything, right? And that was part of it. Trump doesn't like when you're a pain in his ass, right? That's the whole revenge tour thing. Again, Letitia James, New York prosecutor, that's why she's indicted. But this one, right, John Bolton was one of his own, and now he has 18 counts of, mishandling classified information, right? The same thing Trump was indicted on, remember? The Mar-a-Lago raid? Remember all that? When they just absolutely ravaged through Mar-a-Lago? They went through the First Lady's underwear drawer, for goodness sakes. I mean, they just absolutely tore his place apart, right? So let me tell you this. John Bolton actually accused Trump of mishandling classified documents, right? The same thing that John Bolton's being indicted on right now. But he claimed this back in 2022 when Biden was in power. And you know what the Democrats did with that information? Used it to certify the raid on Mar-a-Lago, right? So now, even after all this kind of insults or whatever it was from John Bolton, insulting President Trump, now he attacked his credibility on handling classified documents, right? Accused him of mishandling, and right? And that led to the Mar-a-Lago raid. Now what's going on? Now Trump is doing the exact same thing that happened to him. Giving it right back to you. You know? And that's the thing we learned, at least from what I did from my father. You get hit, you hit him right back. You know? Tit for tat. That's how the world works. If you're going to do something to me and expect I'm not going to do something back, you're silly, right? So that's what Trump's doing here, you know? So I'll get into the details here. 8 counts of transmitting national defense information and 10 counts of unlawful retention of national defense information, right? And the main kind of, you know, story coming out of this is that Bolton actually documented, or they're calling it diary-like entries that he had, where it documented every single day that he was with Trump and every single day of his job, what it entailed, what he did, what he talked about. Everything was in his diary. And that is, you're selling out national defense. You know, we're talking about military strikes. We're talking about insider information. We're talking about classified documents and talking about all that. This is stuff that can't be released. Again, these diary-like entries are something that can't be released, especially in a foreign sense. You know, the foreign affairs can't know about what goes on day to day in our government, especially on an insider track. Absolutely not. You know? So yeah, this indictment is valid from what we've seen so far, what they pulled through their raid on Bolton's house. You know, it makes sense. So, but again, you can't hit and expect not to be hit back. That's the whole point we're making here. That's the whole point Trump's making. So I call it his revenge tour. And yeah, liberals are going to be upset about it. But then don't do it in the first place. Don't attack us and we won't attack you. This goes for the ICE protests where you're attacking federal facilities. It goes for multiple things. You think we're not going to retaliate to this? We are. Civilly. Through the courts. Right? But anyways, that is kind of about it. But anyways, this whole thing, and I know liberals they're going to push the narrative, and watch out for this. They're going to push the narrative that, oh, Bolton was one of his own and he's going after his own people, so you better watch out, Republicans. He'll come after you next. Don't say something bad about Trump. No. Bolton did more than that. When you allege a crime against somebody on national news and give insider information regarding that to the Democrats, you know, that's going a little far. And did they find anything? No, they didn't, right? So that's kind of about it. Little bit of a shorter episode on this Friday, as I tend to make my Friday episodes a little shorter, a little lighter on the ear, if you will. But, you know, again, I can't thank everyone enough for tuning into these. I am having so much fun making them. I'm having so much fun talking about my political interests with all of you that watch these. And again, I'm really getting more experience with making these videos. I'm getting more experience making the shorts. The shorts seem to do quite well, more well than the videos are, right? But again, every like, every subscribe, it really just pushes me forward and pushes me to sit down and do my research and come to you guys with the daily news and what's going on, right? So, and again, if there's something you'd like me to speak on, go ahead, drop a comment. I'll be sure to put some research towards it, and we'll get it on the show, right? We'll put it in front of us and get talking about it. But again, I know I mentioned this last episode. I want to start getting into more debate style kind of a format every so often. Now, it won't be every time, but kind of a debate style. I have some friends that are rather liberal, right? And I'd like to hear their side. I'd like to hear where they come from on a research standpoint on some of these issues that we have talked about on our show, right? Like to sit down and, cheer like a podcast style format and really talk and debate things over. I'd really like to do that. So that is in the future. Look out for that. That will be on this channel. And again, you know how I end every single episode. If you guys are watching to the end of these, conservatives, continue to stay proud to be conservatives, especially tomorrow, Saturday the 18th, right? With the whole No Kings protest, that's going to be all over the news. It's going to be all there, No Kings, whatever. You're taking away my First Amendment right? Stay proud to be a conservative. Stay proud to be part of the good old GOP, right? We're fighting the fight. We're here to stay. So, thank you again for tuning in to another wonderful episode of Red Wave USA. My name is Ross Raatz. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday, and good night.